One second. Technology is our friend. Okay, so we have the YouTube channel up. Let me put something there for everyone to see. Okay, that's not what I want. One second here, guys. Just bear with me. I want to put something in the YouTube channel for them. Doo-doo-doo. And I'll put something here for you just joining me. There you go, something you can look at right quick while I get us set up. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started here. That kind of threw me for a loop there. But when you are a one-man show, you got to be able to roll with the punches. All right, one last thing and we'll get started. Okay, all right. Good morning, family. Thank each of you for persevering, for sticking around and joining us. I want to welcome you to Serendipity Sunday, this sacred space where spirit meets us in real time and truth becomes what I like to call a lived experience. For those of you who don't know, I'm Greg Stanton, also known as Asar. I'm the metaphysical mystic. My calling is to stand at the crossroads of ancient wisdom, modern insight, and personal demonstration to help you move through from believing to being the truth, not just knowing, but being. So let's get started this morning with a centering breath. Okay. Um, as you inhale, I want you to whisper now. And as you exhale, hear. Again, as you inhale, you whisper now, and as you exhale, here. Because this is where life actually happens in the now, here, not tomorrow, not yesterday. I've come to find that sometimes life feels like you're going nowhere until you realize you're now here. Think about that. It often feels like you're going nowhere, but you actually are now here. And we miss that. We miss the that we're actually where we need to be. When we look at Hebrews 11 and 1, it says, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And that's kind of like that's where we consider ourselves nowhere, but we are really now here. And I'm going to break that down for you. When we explore Williams Bridges' book Transitions, which we started last week, in it he said, it isn't change or changes that do you in, it's transitions. So today we want to explore how to find peace, purpose, and power in life's in between places. How to turn what feels and seems like nowhere into now here. See that? Let's explore this paradox of nowhere. Every one of us has walked through a nowhere season. You might be in the midst of it right now. That is, the job ended. We have 300,000 federal employees who feel like they're in a nowhere situation right now. We have relationships that have shifted. The old certainty has fallen away. Doors that you prayed for seem to stay closed. This is the nowhere. The phone stopped ringing. The dream you were working towards suddenly lost momentum. Your body didn't respond the way it used to, or finances perhaps have tightened, friendships grew distant, and prayer felt like an echo. Yes, you prayed, you planned, you persisted, but all you could say was, I feel like I'm going nowhere. If you ever felt that, if you're feeling that, put a thumbs up there in the chat box. Well, family, what I want you to know is that space between what was and what will be. This is exactly where spirit does its finest work. This is where transformation happens. William Bridges called it the neutral zone, the sacred wilderness between endings and beginnings. So I want you to think of Israel after leaving Egypt. They were free, but they weren't yet fulfilled. They weren't lost, they were learning who they had become. It was a time of reflection. Maybe that's you this morning or this evening or whatever time you're watching this. Not back where you were, not yet where you're going. You might be finishing school, but not clear on your career path. You may have ended a long relationship and you're learning how to be whole alone. Well, perhaps you've moved into a new city and you haven't yet found your community. Or maybe you're caring for an aging parent or two, or rebuilding your finances after loss. You too could be waiting on healing, guidance, or direction for your next step. You're in what I would like to call the hallway between doors, and heaven seems silent. You've been there, or are you there? Listen, silence is not absence. Let that soak in. In silence, there's no absence. It is spirit rearranging you for your next revelation, for the big reveal. It's divine incubation. We talked about that. It's a sacred pause before manifestation. It's the sowing the seed and nothing appears to be happening, but it is. Now, let's look at the word itself. What word am I talking about? The word nowhere. Nowhere. Now, if you add one small space, it becomes now here. You take the nowhere, add a space between the now and the here, and you get now here. Nothing changes except your awareness. That means the transformation begins not outside of us, but within us, in the squeeze. According to the law of mentalism, that is, as within, so without, our outer world always reflects our inner state, our consciousness. When awareness shifts from fear to faith, from confusion to clarity, from resistance to acceptance, life begins to reorganize. And it reorganizes itself to match the vibration. That's the law of mentalism. It's actually in motion. That is, as within, so without. So when you look at the no, it represents resistance. When you say, I feel like I'm nowhere, that's a statement of resistance. The where represents evidence. When resistance dissolves, what was nowhere becomes now here. This isn't about grammar, it's about growth. What you change in awareness, life rushes to match. Let me say that again. What you change simply through awareness, life rushes to match. So take a slow breath and place your hand over your heart right now. And I want you to whisper this. I'm going to say it once and then let's whisper it together. What I call nowhere is actually now here. Together. What I called nowhere is actually now here. That small shift changes everything. Peace replaces panic. Calm always replaces confusion because spirit was never absent, only awaiting your recognition. As the psalmist declared to us, be still and know that I am God. And you say that to yourself, be still and know that I am God. This call to stillness is not about inactivity, but it's really about an inner alignment in the quiet recognition of the divine presence of our oneness of being. Fear begins to dissolve and our faith awakens. To be still is to stop striving, to quiet the noise of doubt, and to listen to the whisper of assurance within. Now, here's the revelation that stillness, that holy pause, is the very space between know and where. It is that sacred gap, I would like to say, where resistance yields to recognition. Change happens. Whether you resist it or not, physically, mentally, we often resist the change. And so we feel as though we in that nowhere space. But it's that sacred gap between know and where that helps us to see our resistance or to recognize it and to not and sometimes we want to yield to the resistance. It is a sacred gap where resistance yields to recognition and the mind opens to divine order. The silence between these two words mirrors the silence where transformation happens. Okay? In this space, the presence of God, Source, fills what seemed empty, and awareness bridges what once felt divided. It is in the still knowing that awareness of now, here, dawns, revealing that God was never gone, only waiting for our attention to return. That we sometimes the change is so great, so vast, so quick that it just engulfs us. And we feel like we are in that state of nowhere. But when we take that pause and place that space and understand, I am now here, something happens. Spiritually speaking, this space is the wilderness is not a void, it's a womb, it's a place of incubation. Everything you're becoming is gestating there. So when you can't see what's happening, I want you to trust what's forming. Let me say, how do I navigate the nowhere season of my life? We all have them. We all are going to go through them, and most of us are in the midst of them. So when you find yourself in that quiet in between, that's disoriented place known as the wilderness of waiting, here's how to stay centered until clarity shows up. There's three things you want to do. You want to pause, you want to practice presence, and you want to perceive your purpose. So let's explore them. Endings deserve reverence, acknowledgement. That's the pause. So don't rush your resurrection. Learn to honor the release. William Bridges illustrates in his books Transitions, we all encounter seasons where we must let go of the familiar identities that we have, places that we've been, before we step into the new. And many times we want to rush right in. But even the children of Israel could have rushed right in, but they weren't ready. Because many times when we rush into that new thing, we still are holding on to the old thing. Oh, while the new thing is here, the old stuff may be drowned out. But ultimately, the old behaviors, the old thoughts begin to crop up or crop up in our lives. So Before you step into your new, be willing to stop in the pause. This may look like a career change when we're talking about the new, retirement, or organizational restructuring. Moments when individuals lose a role that once defined them, a husband, a wife, whatever, and are called to rediscover who you are beyond the titles, beyond where you used to live, beyond what you used to do. In his book, he describes executives who, after leaving a long held position, struggle with the loss of identity until they learn to bless what is ending. Others in midlife transitions find themselves between roles. Maybe that's you, releasing what no longer serves you so that a truer self can emerge. Yes, this pause I'm talking about is an invitation to still or to be still and to know. As the scripture calls us, be still and know that I am God. Not the God out there, but the God that's in there. The source of who you are that's going through whatever you're going through with you. To pause is simply to stand in faith, okay? Quiet strength, and to recognize that every ending has sacred purpose. Everything. We say things like, all things work together for those who love the Lord and called according to his purpose. Things are always working out for me, even an ending. So when we take time to bless what is completing, we open the door for new creation to arise in divine timing. Oftentimes, when I'm talking to couples about relationships coming to a close, the couple who I'm talking about is not really benefiting from the pause. They're ready to bury it, they're ready to move into the next. But there's some questions you may want to ask yourself. What did I give to this that's ended? What did I receive from this? What role did I play in this? Sometimes when some things come to an end, it may not feel sacred because we caused the end. Maybe you didn't show up to work on time enough, or maybe you were not fully present to your relationship and it fizzled out. Whatever the ending was, sometimes it's not always a natural ending, but it could be an ending that we participated in. And that's a learning space also. So the first thing you want to do in order to, what I like to say, navigate the nowhere is to get to the pause, realizing I am now here. And when you enter into the space, you want to practice presence. The children of Israel, for 40 years, each day they were practicing the presence of knowing that source was their daily bread. So when we talk about practice presence, when the mind runs ahead, you're not in practicing presence. You run into the future. So when the mind runs ahead, what actually happens is your soul loses the rhythm. Stillness isn't idleness. It's really spiritual alignment. It's really spiritual attunement, atonement. As William Bridges noted in Transitions, he talks about transitional seasons where people often become anxious to fill the space with constant activity. When I notice, like, if someone loses a loved one, that space is filled with preparing for the homegoing, calling people. So there's a lot of activity going on, and they're not really present to what has happened. Brides get married, and the day of the wedding, they're not present because they're quarterbacking the whole thing. That's why I encourage brides to get someone to be the wedding facilitator. Because many times when we're in the midst of this, we are not idle, but we are doing something because we're so accustomed to doing something when we're uncomfortable. So William Bridges notes this in Transitional Seasons. He tells us that people often become anxious to fill the space with constant activity. Yet that busyness only deepens confusion. Give you an example. Someone who has just left a long held position may immediately look for another title instead of allowing space for reflection and renewal. Practicing presence means resisting the urge to rush forward, to sit in it. It means sitting quietly long enough to sense what Spirit is revealing in the pause. The children of Israel sat for 40 years. That means a true period of gestation, trusting that during this time, clarity will come not from movement, but from the moment, but from the mindful awareness that comes within this season. So you go to the pause, you practice presence from changing it to nowhere to now here. And now the third thing is you want to perceive the purpose of this season. You want to ask this question. Now, I'm bringing it home with this. What is this space trying to birth through me? Not just around me. What is this space trying to birth through me? Not just around me. The wilderness is never wasted. Remember, it's a womb. It's a womb space. The gestation between imaginations and manifestations. Think of the Israelites in the Exodus story. Their wilderness wandering wasn't a delay, it wasn't a denial, it was about development. So you may feel like you're being delayed, you may feel like you're being denied right now, but really, when you sit in it and know that things are working out for you, even when they don't appear to be working out for you, be present to the nowness of today, the newness of what's coming, you realize it's about development. Something greater was being birthed through the children of Israel. It was a new identity as a free people, a nation learning to depend not on Pharaoh's system, but on divine provision. Every challenge, from the manna in the morning to the water from the rock, it was shaping them to know Source intimately as their provider and to walk in trust. That's why he didn't give them food for the week, he gave them daily bread. And then he said, okay, on this day, you collect enough for 2 days because the next day is a rest day. But you know how some are. They begin to hoard. And even some probably even collect enough for the tomorrow and they had to borrow. So I want you to know it's about trusting, learning to trust. And like no other time in our lives, we are leaning into trusting in Source, in saving ourselves. Things can change in the twinkling of an eye, but there's one constant, and that is Source. So the wilderness taught them who they were and who God was. So when we have an experience, an ending, it gives a deeper relationship with Source and who Source is and what Source can do. And we see this for the children of Israel. They were prepared, they were being prepared to carry a new consciousness, a consciousness of freedom into the promised land, not a consciousness of dependency. And we move into each day not with a dependency on God, but an interdependency as God. So this morning, I want you to say this with me. I'll say it once so you can hear it, and then let's say it together. I stand in the middle of nothing and realize it is the middle of everything. Let's say that twice. I stand in the middle of nothing and realize it is the middle of everything. Now say it with conviction. I stand in the middle of nothing and realize it is the middle of everything. And so it is. Because the middle is never empty. It is where endings and beginnings meet in a sacred handshake. Just as Israel stood between Egypt and the promised land, that middle place tested their faith and prepared their hearts to trust provisions in the unknown. Likewise, it's the same for us. In our own lives, we've seen how awareness changes everything. Change the way you look at things and the things you look at change. We've seen how stillness, presence, and purpose help us move from fear to faith, from waiting to awakening. The message today is about reminding us that nowhere is never wasted time. So when you say, I feel like I'm nowhere, it's awareness that I'm now here. I'm right where it's supposed to be. So nowhere is never a wasted time. It is always a sacred ground for transformation. In every pause, something divine is forming within us. This awareness of being now here is the invitation to live awake and be grateful and to honor the space between the journey, what was and what will be. Trusting that each step is guided and each moment is holy. The word says, the steps of the righteous are ordered. Always. Even when you slip up, trip up, they're ordered. Yes, and so it is. Hope you got something out of that. So, beloved, every time we gather, I like to give an opportunity for you to give. We practice what I call faith in motion here at the Oasis Spiritual Center, Oasis Everywhere. We like to turn spiritual principle into physical proof. And our giving, yes, the exercising of this opportunity to give is not a transaction. It's really about demonstration. It's really about trusting. It's really about the prophet asking the woman who was in need, what's in your hand? It says, even in transition, I trust divine supply. If this message this morning has reminded you that you are now here, consider sowing into this spiritual work. Your generosity keeps Serendipity Sunday thriving, a sanctuary for truth seekers and soul builders. You may give through Cash App, Zelle, using the following number: 708 368 1076. Again, that's 708 368 1076. Or you can go to the online portal at oasiseverywhere.com and go over to the giving tab, and you'll find um, different ways in which you can transmute what you have to here, from there to here. So as you give this morning, would you affirm with me? I'll state it once, and then let's repeat it together twice or once. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I give, all that I receive, and all that I am. Okay, let's say that one more time. Matter of fact, I'm gonna drop that in the chat so you all can have it and you can use it whenever you give. So I'm gonna put that right there so you can read it. And there you go. Let's affirm that together. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I give, all that I receive, and all that I am. Then I like to say, circulate, circulate, circulate. And so it is. Thank you. Thank you for your continued support of this community and the work presented. All right, let us close up our time together with a affirming prayer. So right where you are, you can just close your eyes and just take a big breath in to recenter, reset. Infinite presence as we come within. In the stillness of between our endings and beginnings, we discover there's no nowhere in you. What seemed lost is located in love. What seemed delayed is developing in divine order. Teach us to rest in your rhythm. Let us have peace And let this peace replace panic and clarity replace confusion. We're not waiting for life to begin. We are life beginning again, right here, right now. And so it is. And so may we live no longer fearing the space between, but finding the sacred in every now here. Ashe. And so it is. All right, family. As you move through this week, whenever life feels like it's standing still, I want you to pause. I want you to breathe and remember you are never nowhere. You are now here. So join us next week for another Serendipity Sunday. Message of revelation and renewal. We'll continue into this same conversation about transitions. We're dealing with transitions this month. So I hope you're getting something out of it. If you need to, reach out to me and we can have a deeper conversation. You have a wonderful day. If you're with us this morning in the Zoom room and you want to participate in the green room this morning, just stick around while I prepare for the green room conversation. Awesome. All right, we're in the green room this morning. I'm looking here in the feed at the from the Zoom room, the conversation. Rachel said, "The space between the now and here can mean an ending or a new beginning." Psalms 46 and 10. That's correct. The it will mean how you transition that space will mean a new beginning or a continuation of an old ending. That's important. All right, if you got a question or comment, if you I think Al, all right, Al, you have the mic.
Good day, brother. Sir. Love and light to you and the
Love and
entire
light.
family. I as you were speaking, I remember once before that I've been talking about a higher level of contrast, and in the going through, I noticed that as I was to complete one project, I immediately wanted to rush in to the next project. But I believe that source told me to take an opportunity to give thanks for the ending or the assignment that I had just completed. And
Mhm.
so I would just like to know, is that a good practice, or should we just continue to keep the engine going and try to do all that we can, or just to be present with where we were?
I think that's a good observation. Always to be in everything, give thanks. So expressing gratitude, and oftentimes we don't do that enough, particularly when we're rushing out of. And even in the midst of something, on our way out, we want to thank Source for sustaining us through the time that was difficult time that we were challenged. We want to acknowledge that and acknowledge how trusting in source um, was meant that the righteous you weren't forsaken. You didn't end up going under. You didn't end up folding. That you got through. You got banged up, but you maybe made some decisions you made that you grew from, but you made it through. So I like to say gratitude in everything. Take a moment and express gratitude. And the way we can do that is at the end of our day, we can go into silent reflection and just be grateful. Gratitude for what we didn't have to experience, how we grew through observation, seeing decisions that others perhaps have made, and now we can benefit from just reflecting on where, not in judgment, but except for the grace of God. That too could be you. So, yeah, and celebrating what has been, celebrating what is, and celebrating what's to come all in one. Don't get stuck in one. Does that help?
Yes.
And then contrast, sometimes we get a greater level of contrast, or contrast gets stepped up because we didn't learn the lesson. And so, okay, I got it. First, I just gave you a headache. Oh, no. First, I allowed you to experience a headache. Now, the headache, you didn't learn from that. Now that goes into something else. And so what we have to understand is when the body speaks to us, we can listen or we can ignore. And if we ignore, because self-preservation is the first law, the body's going to continue to increase the contrast, letting you know that, hey, something ain't right, you need to deal with it. And so we need to pay attention to that. As we grow older, as we age, we have to understand that youth is coming to an end. And so sometimes we feel like we're in a whole nowhere state. You don't jump out the bed as quickly as you used to. You fall asleep in the midst of your day instead of embracing it and pausing and saying, "What is this about? Am I getting enough rest, or am I just aging?" And we can learn to age gracefully. The things you used to eat, you can eat them no more, but they don't represent your highest and greatest good. And so we have to be just present to the endings that are taking place every day and the transition that it's going to take to accept it and embrace it. Yeah. Thank you, Al.
I have one more
Mhm,
comment.
mhm.
Um,
Oh,
as you
one
were
one comment per session. No, joking with
as you were speaking, um, you mentioned the word trust, and in the process of trust, it also reminded me of a business that I had, a business concept that I came up with originally. Now I've went through different concepts, but the first concept that I had originally came up with today, you reminded me of that. So I want to say thank you.
you. Awesome. Good, good. The um, clarity replaces confusion. What did you say replaces panic? Peace, 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 and being present to right here, right now. That's Savananda. Yeah, Beverly. Yeah, that's peace. Yes. Then Carolyn said, "Good morning to all. I'm looking through here. Is there any other questions, any reflections? How do you feel about this conversation around transitions? Does it give clarity to where you may be, having an ending, in the middle of somewhere, you feeling like you nowhere, but you exactly now here where you need to be? Um, where are you guys at with that? If somebody want to make any comments to that, freely do that. Go ahead and raise your hands if you have anything. Um, awesome. I'm not going to keep circling. Good morning, Rachel. You have the mic.
Good morning, Oasis family. Excuse me. I was reflecting back on the now and the here as relate to transition. And my husband and I are both, well, I kind of like to change the term from retired to refired, you know. And we hear that all the time. And this first thing someone had told me once my husband retired, and the same thing was told me, you all got to keep busy. You got to do something. This happens when you stop working, and it just dotted, I just go on, and not giving yourself a chance to just have that sacred pause. And my husband reminded me, he said, for 40 plus years, someone has told me to how long I can eat, how long I can be in the bathroom, when to get up, when to leave. And he said, no, I'm doing it on my terms now, you know. And he said, if I want to do something, I will. If I don't, I don't have to. So it is important to have that have your own clarity and decide when you want to do if source is directing you to do anything. But like I said, be still and know that a time of rest is good.
Yes, it's that sacred pause. It's that recalibration. After 40 years of getting up, doing the same things, you'll wake up tomorrow and feel that you have no value, you have no worth because it was tied to your work. And also there's more to retirement than getting a check without pay. No, you've paid for it already. And so we have to understand retirement is also a time to reflect on what have I learned, what did I long to do when I was working that now I'm in a position to do. So it's really a season of reflection, gratitude for 40 years or gratitude for 20 years, however many years, because a lot of people don't make it. And to celebrate it. Celebrate it. That's important. Yeah, don't rush and don't let the people define for you what your new will be. Don't let people refine for you what your pause will be. Everybody's pause is different. You know why? Because we all are interpreting situations we think different. That's important. Thanks for sharing that this morning, Rachel. Yeah, that sacred space. Okay, I see Carolyn, you have the mic.
Yes, good morning, Asar. Good morning, Oasis. Good to be with everybody this morning. Yeah, I just had a thought. You didn't finish reading my statement when I said good morning to all. The
Okay.
rest of that statement was think on these things. When you were speaking, that thought just
Okay.
really, it just kind of rang out, in my head. Think on these things. And sometimes I think we think in the stillness when we're saying be still, it's like a place of nothingness, right? A
Mhm.
place of where you're not doing anything, you're trying to let everything be quiet around you. But the thought, it just really impressed me. Think on these things, think on what's being said this morning. Reflect on that because even in the stillness, we are still receiving information. We're still reflecting. We're still, even in the pause, that's not idleness, and that we have to be kind of open to what's coming in, even though we may not realize it's coming in. We still have to be aware that there's something happening, and I need to pay attention to that. So, just wanted to add that this morning.
Yeah, and that think on these things is a call to pause. It's a call to not just look on what is obvious, not just looking at what you may be experiencing, but it's saying some other things too. Um, what is forming, not just
Right.
what is forming, but what you desire to be formed. That I think that's Paul was Philippians 4:8, where he
Mm-hmm.
tells us to think on these things. He says,
Mm-hmm.
"What things? Whatever is true, what is honorable, what's just, what's pure, what's lovely." And most of all, what was of a good report. We have to do that. When we do this, it's simply it, it's beyond positive thinking. Okay, it's
Mm-hmm.
spiritual discipline. When we
Right.
fix our attention on higher realities, what happens is our consciousness aligns with divine order. The mind becomes a vessel for revelation rather than
Yes.
so thinking on these things, as you say, anchors us in the present and it trains our awareness to perceive the sacred even in uncertainty. It is through this intentional focus, the thinking on these things, that we transform our fear into faith and despair into demonstration. That's why those scriptures tell us exactly what to think on. It don't leave it open. What is true? What is honorable? What is just? What is pure? What is lovely and of a good report? Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Awesome. I'll clean this up and get it out to everyone. Let me see. I don't see any other hands here. Let me see if there's anything over in the Zoom room. I mean, the YouTube channel. Let me see here. We had a number of people that was there this morning. Let me see here. I'm thanking King T says, I'm thanking Source for allowing me to be still and able to enjoy the present. Yes, that's powerful. That's powerful. Good, good. Awesome. Well, that's all I have for you this morning. And I look forward to seeing you guys on tomorrow, on Sunday, Monday morning, perhaps at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time for our morning meditation. The government is closed on Monday, but I'll just rise early and have that for those who are accustomed to coming in at 6 a.m. If you're going through a layoff, if you're going through uh, a furlough, If you work for the government, just be still and know that I am God. Know that God is your provider. So I encourage each of you as we move into this rest of this day and the rest of and this beginning of this new week to know that God is your provider. All right, that's all we have. I'll chat with you guys in the morning. Peace. Thanks, Carolyn.